All right. With that
And
said,
actually, one thing, the third,
oh, okay.
if you're watching this program this morning, call all your friends, your neighbors, your kids, anybody who's on Facebook and YouTube, and let them know we're on with a fabulous show this morning. Tune in
Your
now.
your friends and your enemies. All right, bring them all because these are the people we have. Oh, and I should have known. Thank you, Suzanne. You
He
almost
just came skidding in.
you almost made it on time, and the grand entrance from Suzanne Malec-McKenna, and but Sandra was there as she needed to be. Thank you, Sandra, for being in place when the show started. All right. If you might not be able to read it, so I'm going to pop this up there. And the title we gave to Suzanne Malec-McKenna is "Slayer of Multidimensional Challenges." And I decided this morning that her real title is Disruptor, and you just proved it once again, Suzanne. So
I like to be consistent. What can I say?
you are, if nothing else, you are consistent. So welcome both of you to the show. We're very excited about this. We're going to go till 10:30 here today, talking about a bunch of different. I didn't even get all of them. I realized I finished the blog and I posted it, and I didn't get everything in there. But I'm hoping that some of this will come up during the show as we discuss certain matters. It will trigger conversation about other things. So what I want to do here is do a couple of quick introductions of our guests, and we'll start with the woman on your left, the disruptor, and she is Suzanne Malec-McKenna, and she served the city of Chicago for 17 years. First as head of the Natural Resources Division, later the Natural Resources and Water Quality Division for 13 years, working to engage Chicagoans in programs like Green Corps, which you're still involved in, right?
You
Uh,
got it.
and Chicago Conservation Corps, and you helped develop programs like the North Park Village Nature Center, the Calumet Initiative. I threatened that we might talk about. I know that one is we have to. We'll have to get into that because I know it's close to your heart. And the Chicago Center for Green Technology. And then you were 4 years commissioner of the Department of the Environment. You also oversaw permitting and enforcement, urban management, and brownfield reclamation and energy and sustainable business division. You've also worked with Chicago Wilderness, Open Lands, and other environmental organizations. You certainly have your
I've been
chops.
around, baby.
Yeah,
I've been around.
you have. And of course, on your right is Sandra Henry. And I'm going to get the title right now that I didn't do in our little promotional video that I sent out the other day. Senior Director of Energy and Sustainability at Elevate, which is a not-for-profit organization that designs and implements programs to reduce costs, protect people and the environment, and ensure the benefits of clean energy economy, and that it reaches those who need them most. Now, I will give you a chance to talk a little bit about Elevate in a little bit, Sandra. We'll definitely get to that. But Sandra served as the Chief Sustainability Officer for the City of Chicago at the very end of the Rahm Emanuel administration. And folks, that's a story in itself, which we will get to. Uh, and you worked to advance the city toward 100% clean energy by signing on to the Ready for 100 campaign, committed Chicago to electrify its bus fleet by 2040, and a community-wide transition to 100% renewable energy by 2035. And you were also, before this, back in the day, back when I was at Progresso Radio, like the soup, you were the Senior Energy Efficiency Program Manager for ComEd, and you've designed and managed energy programs for utilities in Minnesota and Illinois, and were the chair of the Chicago chapter of the U.S. Green Building Council, which is now Illinois Green Alliance, from 2015 to 2016. So you also have plenty of chops, Sandra. So
She's
welcome.
just not as old. She's just not as old.
Yeah, but she's
Well, I don't know.
she, maybe she's just better preserved than the rest of us. I don't know.
I sleep in pickle juice every night.
Oh,
All right. So how I want to start here is we've got some background on you, and I want you to talk, each of you, a little bit about your journey uh, in the environmental realm and in city government. Suzanne, let's start with you. And you know, I'm thinking just a few minutes,
oh,
kind of
of
an.
course,
I
my
know.
water.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm not crying. My eyes just bugging me all of a sudden. So, excuse me one moment. And yes,
We have that
happy
effect
to.
on people sometimes.
Yeah, I know. Everybody cries when they watch our show. All right.
It's so touching.
No,
Um,
that's not the reason. Uh,
okay.
but you know, it's. But I'm going to say this. It's funny you should say that, or have this happen to you, because when you were on my program at Progresso, this was shortly after you found out that Rahm Emanuel was going to disband the Department of the Environment.
Yep.
He gave it the axe.
Yeah.
Because you came out of the daily administration, and then Rahm came in and said, "No, we don't need that anymore." You teared up on the show. It was a pretty
Did I?
emotional moment. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I was so mad. It
Well,
wasn't about,
Yeah.
it wasn't, it wasn't like, I was there 17 years, time to move on.
yeah,
But man, there were so many great things happening and such great people, and I think it was just so short-sighted, how they went about it. And anyway,
do you
I could
well
talk
do
about
you
that
do
if
you
you
do
want.
you have any
Oh, eyes. Ah,
are you okay? Should
yeah,
we?
I got something. I
Let's
Okay,
got
let's
something.
start with Sandra.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you
Sorry,
what. Why don't you take care of that?
I'm
Uh,
gonna.
and
I promise you I'm not crying.
So let's go to Sandra then. Okay, Sandra, I'm going to even put you up here. So see,
You're back.
Suzanne, go take care of business. All right.
Yep.
Sandra, tell us your story, because obviously it involves different states and a decision to move to Chicago and then ending up as the chief sustainability officer. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Sure, Mike. Thank you. And I just want to touch on something that Suzanne mentioned about such great people in the Department of Environment. She's absolutely right, and a lot of them are still there. So I'll get to that piece as we kind of progress through the story. But um, I'll start with the saying that you mentioned on one of your shows previously, that good gardeners make good environmentalists. And I feel like my basis for why I'm here right now is because I love gardening and I'm an engineer. So kind of putting those two things together, it really, being a gardener helped me get in touch with what was happening in the environment. And being an engineer and working with utilities, I learned that still the most cost-effective way to mitigate climate change is not to generate kilowatts using coal or other carbon-based fuels in the first place. So that kind of set me on my trajectory in this energy efficiency realm. And for the last 30 years, I've been advocating and creating programs to help buildings save energy and not use carbon-based fuels. So kind of fast forwarding um, to Chicago, I got a chance to work on new construction buildings specifically and helping architects and engineers design buildings that were as energy efficient as possible before we even considered connecting to renewable energy sources. And through the work with Illinois Green and other activities around the city of Chicago, um, in 2018, I got a call from the CSO at the time, Chris Wheat, and he was moving into the role as Mayor Emanuel's chief policy officer, and he needed to fill the chief sustainability officer seat. And he called me and asked me if I'd be willing to be considered. And I took that to mean that, okay, I'm on a list of folks that, they're considering. And your career coach will tell you, if you always say yes when someone asks you if you're willing to be considered, right? Um, I had no idea that I would be the one. And so the process took, probably 3 or 4 months, and I didn't hear much beyond just like send me your resume or send me this. And then probably maybe February or March of 2018, Chris calls me and he says, um, "How would you like to talk to the mayor?" And again, still didn't know if I was going to be CSO or not. And I said, "Okay, let's talk to the mayor." So we did. And after that discussion, which was really quite inspiring, he asked me when I wanted to start. And that's how I got
Wow.
the job. Yeah, it
Wow.
was pretty cool, and I was very excited about that because again, my platform is build energy efficiency in the buildings first. And that was my approach to the job. What I learned as CSO is there are already lots of things already in flight that need to be addressed, and it was no different in Mayor Emanuel's administration. So
What
right
do you what,
away,
what do you mean by that?
yeah. There. So when Mayor Emanuel, you know, had had the event where he brought folks in to sign the climate justice or climate initiative. Can't remember what year that was, 2017, I think. There were a lot of kind of offshoots from that. Like there was this continuing desire from other cities other than Chicago within the metro area for support and how to, like, what's the path to a carbon-free city. So that was one element. Another element is there were a lot of things happening with recycling that needed to be addressed. The tree canopy was another area that needed to be addressed. There was already discussion within the city about how to get to 100% clean energy, not only for the city in general, but specifically for city-owned buildings. So the CSO role is very, very broad and didn't have a lot of staff. So
Yeah,
really, initially, I was like,
because that department had been disbanded a
Zero.
number of years
right,
before, which we'll get
and
to in a
going,
second.
which we'll get to in a second. So I had the pleasure of working with people that had been in the Department of Energy at the time, which is a huge plus because they were able to run projects and manage all of the sustainability environmental pieces without a CSO. And I think we're going to talk about this later, but part of the challenge in coming in June of 2018 and then having Mayor Emanuel announce he's leaving 3 months later, I never got a chance to really get my hands around the whole picture of the CSO job. There's also an environmental component. There are a lot of things happening on the southeast side related to pollutants like manganese and other pollutants in that area that needed attention. And dust is a huge issue as well with trucks and construction dust and asphalt, and all those things need to be regulated. And the CSO job touches on all of that. So
When you say it touches on, and by the way, you're in a sense burying the lead because you got the job as CSO in the Emanuel administration, which meant you had to move from the suburbs into the
Yeah.
city to be a resident here. And then 3 months later, he says, "Oh, by the way, I'm not running for mayor again." That was, speaking of disruption, that was a bit of a
yep,
disruption to your life, wasn't it?
it was a huge disruption. We had to sell the house, pack our things
Oh.
in a very short time period. Yeah, that was a huge disruption. So to get to Chicago, within 3 months of the move, learn that the mayor is not running was a huge surprise, and it was a
Yeah.
big
The
surprise
job's
to
going away.
everybody in the office. Well, the CSO job is it's required to have a CSO. It's in the city statute.
And the other thing
Um,
you said, there was so much to absorb in the position, but as I mentioned, you didn't really have a department. One of the things that and I found the quote, the article that had it in there. We were talking the other day when we were setting this up, that some alder critters refer to the CSO, the Chief Sustainability Officer. They referred to the department as cubicle of the environment, which is a s-
Interesting.
and because there's been, yes, one person. So we went from a staff, we went from an actual department under
Yeah.
Suzanne to the one person throughout Rahm's administration, and unfortunately that has continued into the Lightfoot administration, even though, and I've got the link here from her own page, when she was running, she promised that she would reinstate the Department of the Environment. Well, 2 years down the road, that has not happened.
9-point environmental policy. Yep.
Yeah. And
Uh,
it's a financial issue. That's, we want to talk about that.
yeah,
The
we
money
do.
that this is my understanding, and Suzanne, correct me if I'm wrong, but the money that created the Department of Environment came from a lawsuit in 2000, whenever the heat wave happened
Oh,
and a lot of people
Oh,
died.
1990.
no.
No?
That
Okay.
was a great bank account, but it was not
Okay.
what started the work.
Was not what started. So when Mayor Emanuel took office, my understanding was the bank account was pretty much gone. No?
Well,
Yeah,
well,
no.
let's. This is
Okay,
the
that's
time
fair.
we. This is the time we
Yeah.
go to Suzanne,
Well, it
and
was a great bank account, and I will tell you about that. But actually, when you do, hi everybody,
and and
Welcome
and
back.
and may
I'm
I?
back.
How are
The
your
eyes are
eyes?
clean.
Okay, and if you get a chance,
They
just
might cry. They might cry later if we
okay.
talk about stuff that could cause me to cry. Which there's plenty of things that can. But
I'm going to ask you to
so
tilt down a little bit too, if you can do that. Is that possible with that camera? There we go. Yay!
you want to see my cleavage? Is that what it is?
Absolutely. All right. So, but then you
Um,
settle back into your chair there. So,
all
anyway,
right,
so
fine. Here. Is this better? There.
all right,
Is that
there we
better?
go. I'm trying to be as
I
professional as
wanted to show you
possible.
my green books. Look at my green books back here. There's so many great books. Wildflowers and all stuff about climate and the Green New Deal, Last Child in the Woods.
There you
So I
go.
just want to make
Uh,
plugs.
so, tell us about that, the Department of the Environment, and your role in it.
Okay. Um, hmm. So how do you want me to start?
Well, let's.
Long, long ago in a galaxy far, far
In a
away.
galaxy
All right,
far,
let
far.
me ask
Well,
you a question about what happened just after you left. Do you know why the department was disbanded? Why was it cut out?
yeah, I think that, I mean, there are different perspectives about how to run environmental action and policy at a municipal level. And there are many cities that do it with a singular person who usually has some kind of staff and then coordinates amongst a range of different departments. Um, and so it's really an organizational structure issue, not as much a money thing. It really isn't, because there are certain things happening regardless, like enforcement. And actually, one of the biggest revenue sources for a Department of Environment is enforcement, because you have to get we had a big team doing great work on air quality, water quality, even olfactory things, stink.
Soil quality as well. You were working on.
Well, yeah, that's of course that's the toxicity in the soil and what we need to do depending on the kind of development you want to do.
Hmm.
But uh, you know, the enforcement group is big and wide and does a lot of work if that's their priority, right? And our priority was not let's bust people and put them out of business. It was more let's help people comply so we can keep these businesses, right? So we can keep people employed. If they can't comply, if they're not doing good business, they should go. But let's see what we can do first to clean them up and make them a good citizen of the city, right?
Hmm.
So the enforcement division, um, we submitted a lot of permits. People had to pay for permits all the time. I'm not kidding you. I probably signed 30, anywhere from 30 to 75 things a day for the enforcement division,
Wow.
where there were permits, there were certificates, they were sometimes lawsuits, they were administrative hearings. I mean, I was just constantly signing stuff for that group. It was really one of the busiest groups. And for all of that, there are fees, there are fines, there are certificate costs, etc. And oftentimes that would go into what's called general revenue, which is just the city's budget, and you never see it. But I'm trying to remember what the numbers were. But I mean, it was several $1,000,000, easy.
Mhm.
And if you tie those types of things to operational aspects, you can actually make a lot happen that way. And again, it's not slamming people as much as when somebody sets up a new factory. I know there was a two-part process. There was first the process of making sure all the equipment they use follows all the environmental guidelines, right? And there was some kind of fee for that. And then there was the operational fee that would have to, certificate of operation, I remember that one, before they started business, before they turned it on. And then there's an annual visit, inspection, and recertification. Now, that probably sounds like we're gouging them. We weren't. It wasn't a crap load of money for the size of these organizations, but it brought in revenue. And if you tie your budget to operations in that way, you can start seeing how it can, a lot of things can drive itself. And that's what was lost in this process. So actually the beginning of the Department of Environment came from shoreline restoration with the Army Corps of Engineer. Henry Henderson was in the law department, and he was helping oversee and push the Congress to bring money to the Army Corps to rebuild our shoreline, which is now far, far, far underway, but it's taken many, many years. There was money from that, and then there was money from enforcement, and that's where the budget started to form.
Okay. This is
Okay.
a good introduction. We need to take a short break, and we will return with some specific issues that I want to get into. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malec. This morning we're talking Chicago environmental smack with the experts, and we will be right back.